On a late February afternoon, Atlanta, Georgia, buzzes with the unmistakable energy of urban life meeting winter's hesitant chill. The sky stretches wide, pale blue streaked with lazy gray clouds drifting across the horizon. A crisp coolness hangs in the air, brushing against the faces of hurried pedestrians, hinting at colder temperatures as the golden sun begins its slow descent. Long shadows stretch over city streets, painting sidewalks and glass skyscrapers in a warm amber glow. Downtown pulses with movement, a symphony of traffic hums, footsteps clatter against concrete, and distant horns punctuate the rhythm. Business professionals in tailored coats stride purposefully toward MARTA stations, their exhaled breaths visible in soft puffs against the crisp air. Street vendors call out, their voices cutting through the city's murmur, while musicians on corners weave smooth jazz and soulful blues into the fabric of the city. The scent of roasted peanuts mingles with the sharp tang of exhaust fumes, a sensory blend of Atlanta's vibrant pace. Leafless winter trees line Peachtree Street, their skeletal branches reaching skyward, anticipating the renewal of spring. Nearby, historic neighborhoods exude quiet dignity. Stately southern homes, cloaked in stubborn ivy, stand as testaments to a slower, more contemplative rhythm of life. The brick facades whisper stories of endurance as the hum of distant traffic offers a reminder of the city's perpetual motion. As the sun sinks lower, neon signs flicker to life, painting reflections across rain-dampened pavements. Cafes and diners spill warmth onto the streets, their soft lights and muffled laughter providing refuge from the cool evening air. Atlanta stands poised in transition, afternoon fading into evening, winter brushing against the edges of spring. For now, it wears its February cool with grace and determination, a city alive with resilience and electric anticipation. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport thrums with relentless energy, a sprawling gateway of glass, steel, and constant motion. Known as the busiest airport in the world, it stretches across acres of land, an intricate web of terminals, runways, and concourses that hum with orchestrated chaos. Vaulted ceilings allow sunlight to flood the main terminal, casting a bright glow on polished tile floors that gleam beneath the shuffle of thousands of hurried travelers. The air is alive with the scent of jet fuel, mingled with fresh coffee brewing at countless cafes, underpinned by the faint antiseptic tang of recent cleanings. Inside, signs in multiple languages guide travelers toward concourses labeled A through F. The underground plane train glides between them, a sleek, automated lifeline that announces stops in a calming, mechanical cadence. The concourses teem with life, offering a blend of bustling restaurants, high-end boutiques, and souvenir shops selling everything from Georgia peaches in decorative boxes to designer luggage. Massive windows line the concourse, framing the runways where planes taxi, take off, and land in a meticulously choreographed ballet. The control tower looms above it all, a sentinel overseeing this marvel of aviation. Security checkpoints hum with efficiency, staffed by officers who move with practiced precision as they guide the river of passengers through layers of scanning and inspection. Hartsfield-Jackson is more than a transit point. It is a city within a city. Moving walkways and shuttles crisscross the vast expanse, connecting gates, terminals, and hidden corridors of maintenance and operations. As twilight settles over Atlanta, the runway lights flicker on, a constellation of guidance marking the pathways for arriving and departing aircraft. Outside, taxis and shuttles weave through the flow of personal cars, their headlights merging into the symphony of engines, rolling luggage, and faint flight announcements carried by the wind. Dwayne stands at the helm of the control room, the glow of monitors casting his focused face in pale light. Around him, live feeds display intersecting flight paths, surveillance footage, and real-time updates. The air vibrates with tension as his team moves with quiet efficiency, their eyes and ears tuned to his every directive. "We have 2 specialists moving," Dwayne announces, his voice a steady anchor. "Agent Carter Davis is delayed en route to Washington Dulles. We'll circle back for him. Right now, our target is Major Samuel Wright, heading to Denver International." The room hums with activity as agents absorb the plan. Max, seated at his station, pulls up Wright's flight details, tapping furiously at his keyboard to secure surveillance feeds. The faint buzz of communications fills the air, blending with the quiet rhythm of clicking keys and murmured updates. Wright's a strategist, Dwayne continues, his tone measured but heavy with urgency. National Reconnaissance Office, surveillance and satellite communication expert. This man doesn't just expect threats, he anticipates them. He'll be watching his back and ours. The team nods in unison, their focus sharpening. Wright's reputation precedes him, his paranoia as legendary as his precision. Dwayne's mind runs a relentless inventory of scenarios, mapping out contingencies with the precision of a chess master. Max, keep our satellite taps undetected. Everyone else, track his communications. We need to be in his head before he's in ours. The team disperses into coordinated action, their movements choreographed and meticulous. Dwayne allows himself a breath, the weight of the mission pressing against his chest. Each second feels like a fragile balancing act. Every action, another card in a precarious stack. There is no room for error. Wright holds a piece of Daylon, and failure isn't an option. At Hartsfield-Jackson, Wright approaches the security checkpoint for privileged individuals, a concealed enclave tucked within the airport's labyrinthine structure. Frosted glass doors slide open to reveal a modern sanctuary of clean lines, dark wood paneling, and muted lighting. Here, efficiency reigns. Whisper-quiet conveyors and advanced scanners process passengers with seamless precision, the hum of state-of-the-art machinery replacing the cacophony of standard checkpoints. Wright moves with purpose, his eyes scanning the room in practiced sweeps. Dwayne tracks his every movement through the feed, his jaw tightening. "We're in," Dwayne murmurs, his voice barely audible over the steady hum of the control room. The team braces, every nerve attuned to the unfolding moment, the weight of the operation pressing down on them all. The private security enclave at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport hums with a quiet efficiency that sets it apart from the chaotic main terminals. There are no shrill beeps or frantic travelers fumbling with belts and shoes. Instead, the space exudes an air of calm precision. A security reception desk, manned by agents in crisp Homeland Security uniforms, anchors the room. Their tailored suits, adorned with specialized clearance badges, reflect professionalism, their expressions impassive and their postures erect yet non-threatening. Silent vigilance radiates from them, a reassurance to the high-profile individuals passing through. Small recessed cameras and motion sensors dot the walls, blending seamlessly into the space's modern design. They capture every angle, feeding live footage to a control room where specialized personnel monitor for anomalies with unyielding focus. Every movement in the enclave is deliberate, every detail calibrated to serve a dual purpose of security and discretion. The trio of agents posing as tourists prepares to execute their diversion, blending chaos with comedic precision. Agent Carson leads the way, a tall, lanky figure whose garish Hawaiian shirt and straw hat scream midlife crisis. His sandy blonde hair peeks out from under the hat, and sunglasses perched on his nose complete the caricature. Despite the absurdity of his attire, Carson's sharp blue eyes miss nothing. He moves with a laid-back confidence, his rich tenor voice laced with sarcastic humor, disarming those around him. Wrinkles at the corners of his eyes hint at years of laughter, but the tension in his jaw reveals the seriousness beneath the act. Beside him, Agent Kim exudes frenetic energy. Petite and agile, she wears a hoodie advertising a fictional travel blog and cargo pants overflowing with mismatched props, crumpled boarding passes, snack wrappers, and trail mix spilling from pockets. Her expressive brown eyes dart constantly, balancing between exaggerated exasperation and tactical awareness. Kim's quick wit and multitasking skills bring authenticity to her role as the hapless traveler juggling too many things at once. Agent Lopez rounds out the trio with his stocky frame and easy charisma. His neon green t-shirt, boldly proclaiming sunshine state of mind, contrasts with the February chill, while a baseball cap adorned with tourist pins completes his look. Lopez's loud laughs and casual jabs add levity to the scene, but beneath his charm lies a sharp intuition, ready to pivot as the situation demands. As Major Samuel Wright approaches, Carson launches into the act. Waving an upside-down laminated map, he gestures wildly. "I swear the gate's this way. Or did we just pass it again? Kim, check that app." Kim juggles her props, rolling her eyes dramatically. "I did check. It says Gate D, but look around. This is Gate F." Maybe your tech genius best friend was lying. Lopez adjusts his oversized backpack with an exaggerated groan. Maybe we're on that hidden camera show again. Quick, look for the boom mic. Carson snaps his fingers. Lopez, I told you, no more airport margaritas. You're seeing cameras where there aren't any. Their banter draws amused glances, even coaxing a faint smirk from Wright, whose steely demeanor softens for a moment. Nearby, a security trainee suppresses a chuckle, watching as the trio's antics escalate. Kim groans, dropping a neck pillow onto the conveyor belt. How am I supposed to nap without my neck support? You guys are the worst. Lopez claps Carson on the back, sending the straw hat askew. Remember Boise instead of Boston? Classic Carson move. Passengers chuckle, and Wright mutters under his breath, amateurs, though the corners of his mouth twitch. Kim seizes the moment, flashing him a conspiratorial grin. Any tips for surviving these clowns on a 12-hour flight? Wright responds dryly, noise-canceling headphones, earning another round of laughter from Lopez. Watching from the control room, Dwayne allows himself a rare smirk. Team 1 has timed their routine perfectly, easing the atmosphere while keeping eyes on them instead of the real action. As Wright steps into a discreet screening booth, Agent Sophie Hale takes over. Disguised as a security trainee, Sophie plays her role with calculated awkwardness. Her chestnut hair, neatly tucked behind her ears, frames a youthful face that radiates earnestness. Her green eyes flicker with feigned nervousness as she consults a training manual, filled with diagrams of pat-down procedures. The oversized in-training badge on her uniform catches the fluorescent light, amplifying her portrayal of inexperience. "Arms out, please," Sophie says, her voice tinged with an apologetic tone. Wright complies, extending his arms as his sharp eyes track her movements. Sophie begins the frisk with exaggerated care, her hands gliding down his shoulders and arms with meticulous precision. She pauses unnecessarily at intervals, glancing at the manual for added authenticity. Her polite salutation carries the perfect touch of nervous professionalism, reinforcing her role as the inexperienced, eager-to-prove-herself agent. While her demeanor appears green, a closer look reveals meticulous attention to detail, a readiness lurking beneath the surface of naivety, and a sharp mind cataloging everything in her periphery. Behind Wright, Agent Patel, posing as a scanning technician, executes the real task. Beneath the table, her nimble hands make the switch, replacing Wright's drive with a decoy. Her movements are hidden by the clatter of the scanner and the trio's ongoing antics just beyond the partition. The tourists escalate their routine, drawing laughter from passengers nearby. Carson mimics Sophie's frisking motions in jest, eliciting more chuckles. Wright's attention shifts briefly to the commotion, his suspicion momentarily dulled by the familiar absurdity of airport chaos. "Waistband check," Sophie announces, her tone steady but deferential. Wright's jaw tightens as her hands sweep methodically along the seams of his uniform, her touch firm yet unobtrusive. Her exaggerated care and feigned nervousness reinforce the illusion of a rookie officer, lulling Wright into compliance. Behind him, the briefcase passes through the scanner unnoticed, Patel completing her task with surgical precision. Sophie finishes the pat-down with a polite, "Thank you, sir. You're all set." Wright adjusts his uniform and retrieves the briefcase, unaware of the switch. The tension in his shoulders eases as he steps out of the booth, his focus returning to the mundane chaos of the terminal. Dwayne watches the screen intently, his sharp eyes catching every detail as the team executes the operation flawlessly. When Wright exits the checkpoint, none the wiser, Dwayne leans back slightly, allowing himself a small nod of satisfaction. Another retrieval completed, and the operation presses on. Dwayne allows himself a brief exhale as the fourth successful retrieval flashes across the screen. The iron vise around his chest loosens slightly, but only just. Relief remains a distant luxury as the final task looms ahead. His sharp mind immediately begins recalibrating, compartmentalizing the momentary success while bracing for the next hurdle. 4 down, 1 to go. The weight of the mission presses down with unrelenting force. The air in the control room is thick with tension, a static charge that amplifies the already palpable sense of urgency. Dwayne scans the faces of his team, noting the exhaustion mirrored in their eyes. They move with practiced efficiency, a synchronized trust in his leadership that simultaneously steadies and burdens him. His muscles ache from hours of standing rigid, his shoulders tight with stress. The dull throb behind his eyes pulses with his heartbeat, a physical manifestation of the mental strain. Yet he pushes past the fatigue, focusing on the precision that has brought them this far. Years of relentless training has prepared him for this, moments where mastery and meticulous planning are all that stand between success and failure. Dwayne rolls his shoulders back, a fleeting attempt to alleviate the knots. His thoughts momentarily flirt with doubt, a whisper of what could go wrong in the final act. He silences it with practiced resolve, channeling the anxiety into heightened focus. There is no room for hesitation. Every second counts, and every decision must be calculated with precision. The room hums with controlled activity, the team fully engaged in the mission's final leg. Dwayne pulls a deep breath into his lungs, grounding himself. Fatigue lingers at the edges of his concentration, but he refuses to let it breach the walls of his resolve. As the team confirms the fourth retrieval, Dwayne shifts his focus to the last piece of the operation: Agent Carter Davis, the seasoned CIA operative. The updated flight itinerary glowing on the monitors complicates things. Davis is boarding a delayed flight, taking the operation into the unpredictable realm of mid-air logistics. Dwayne's sharp gaze flicks across the screens as the reality sets in. Retrieving the drive during flight or immediately upon landing presents a new layer of challenges. His mind races through contingencies, balancing risk against reward with every scenario. Time becomes both a constraint and an adversary. 3 hours to devise and execute the final move. He turns to Max, his tech specialist. Track Davis's seat placement and monitor in-flight activity. I need passenger manifests, crew schedules, anything we can use. Max nods, his fingers flying over the keyboard. The tension in the room thickens as team members scramble to gather intel. Dwayne's pacing quickens, his focus unrelenting as he organizes the layers of their plan in his mind. The fatigue gnawing at him intensifies, but he channels the discomfort into purpose. This is the crucible, where success or failure will define everything they've worked for. With 3 hours to act, Dwayne harnesses every ounce of skill, strategy, and intuition to ensure the final piece falls into place. The room quiets as Dwayne steadies his voice to address the team. We'll intercept Davis in Denver, have all teams on standby. His command sends ripples of activity through the space. Monitors display maps, flight paths, and live feeds. The hum of electronics merges with the murmurs of agents coordinating their efforts. Faces reflect the gravity of the moment, each agent aware of the stakes and their role in this critical juncture. The mission hangs in a precarious balance, but his resolve doesn't waver. This is one final test, the moment where his leadership and their collective precision will determine whether they succeed or fall short. Dwayne inhales deeply, his composure firm as he sets his sights on Denver. The relentless energy of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport begins to fade as the journey moves just a few miles south into East Point. The transition is palpable, like stepping from a whirlwind into a quieter, more introspective world. The airport's polished sterility and ceaseless movement give way to East Point's weathered streets and steadfast rhythm. The weather mirrors this shift. At Hartsfield, the air had been charged with the tang of jet fuel and the hum of machinery, where even the clouds seemed secondary to the roar of planes cutting through them. In East Point, however, the sky feels closer, heavy with the weight of gray clouds that threaten rain but hold back, blanketing the city in a moody stillness. The air is damp, clinging to skin with a whisper of unease. Streets glisten faintly with the residue of an earlier drizzle, reflecting the muted glow of aging streetlights. East Point's modest homes and older brick buildings, softened by time, stand as a testament to its working-class roots. The city's resilience is etched into its sidewalks, its people walking with a measured pace, shaped by decades of weathering life's challenges. This small city, often overshadowed by the sprawling metropolitan energy of Atlanta, feels grounded, static yet enduring. It exists in contrast to the airport's transience, where lives intersect briefly before scattering in all directions. In addition to that, the drive from East Point to LaGrange unfolds as a journey not just in distance, but in mood and atmosphere. Leaving East Point, the latent energy of the urban environment gradually dissipates. The hum of highways fades into the quieter cadence of rural Georgia. As the car rolls southward, the damp, heavy air of East Point gives way to something fresher. The scent of pine and damp earth filters through the windows, mingling with the crispness of the February breeze. LaGrange greets you with a gentler expression of winter's gray skies. The chill in the air feels less oppressive, softened by the surrounding nature and the slower pace of life. This small city carries a southern charm, distinct from both the relentless motion of Hartsfield-Jackson and the resilient grit of East Point. Here, historic homes with stately facades line streets flanked by meticulously maintained public spaces. Downtown LaGrange offers a blend of old and new. Vintage storefronts now home to modern businesses, reflecting the city's pride in its roots and its embrace of the present. Where East Point hums with latent energy, LaGrange moves with the ease of familiarity. The people here seem unhurried yet purposeful, embodying a sense of belonging born of generations that have settled and stayed. In LaGrange, time feels less like a race and more like a companion, walking alongside rather than pulling ahead. East Point's resilience holds a darker weight, a history of injustice that festers beneath its streets. The story of Jamarian Robertson, a charismatic community advocate whose life ended in a hail of 59 bullets during a SWAT operation, looms large. His death became a symbol of unchecked violence, a number etched into the memory of a community still seeking answers. Two officers, Nathaniel Morris and Devin Sinclair, spearheaded the operation that took Robertson's life. Both men, once proud defenders of law and order, were eventually consumed by the weight of their actions. Suspended without resolution, they became pariahs in their own lives, their names synonymous with the tragedy that unfolded in East Point. Nathaniel Morris's home in LaGrange, a modest two-story house, stands in stark contrast to the chaos discovered within. The serene February day, with soft sunlight spilling through leafless trees, belies the grotesque scene inside. When neighbors notice his trash cans, usually placed with military precision, remain unmoved for days, the authorities are called. They find Morris slumped in his armchair, a single gunshot wound to his head marking the grim conclusion to his torment. The house is filled with 59 handwritten notes, one for each bullet that ended Robertson's life. Each message is a desperate confession. I am sorry for what I did to that boy, or I deserve no mercy. The haunting symmetry of the numbers and the notes leaves investigators with an undeniable sense of ritual, an eerie echo of the tragedy. In East Point, Devin Sinclair's one-bedroom apartment tells a parallel story of guilt and despair. Found hanging in his living room by a concerned landlord, Sinclair leaves behind 59 handwritten notes, each a heart-wrenching plea for forgiveness. Every bullet I fired was a nail in my own coffin, and 59 bullets, 59 lives destroyed, his, mine, and everyone who loved him. The symmetry between the two officers' deaths is chilling. Their 59 notes a macabre reflection of the violence they unleashed. The weight of their actions consumes them, leaving behind no justice, only more unanswered questions. Neither Morris's nor Sinclair's deaths are logged into Dallon's database. The justice system that suspended them without resolution now fails to account for the psychological toll their actions exacted. Their confessions, while haunting, offer no closure. Instead, they reignite the anger of a community still mourning Jamarian Robertson. The tragedy ties together the stark contrasts of Hartsfield, East Point, and LaGrange. These places, bound by geography, paint a portrait of Georgia's complexities, a global hub of motion, a resilient working-class heart, and a serene small town grappling with its own shadows. Each location tells a piece of a larger story, shaped by the people who live, move, and die within their borders. And as protests swell once more, the question remains: will justice ever find its place among them? The network pledges to step away from bloodshed, striving to forge a path of change without the weight of unnecessary deaths dragging them back into the chaos of vengeance. This isn't part of any directive. Not now, not after everything has shifted. The question looms large. Is this the work of a rogue operative, or is someone outside the network using their legacy as a tool for their own agenda? The similarity between the two deaths is uncanny. Both men, tied by their involvement in Robertson's case, meet their end in grotesquely identical ways. Suicide, the reports claim, though the details feel almost too precise to be a coincidence. The notes scatter like breadcrumbs, pointing to a guilt so overwhelming it cannot be contained. And yet, neither Morris nor Sinclair has shown signs of breaking under the weight of their actions, until now. If this isn't someone within the network, it must be someone with intimate knowledge of its workings, someone who understands the cases they have touched and the people they have affected, someone who knows how to mimic their methods, to leave a signature that makes the world believe this is an extension of their reach. But the network remains silent. No flags, no alerts. Dalen holds no record of these deaths because they aren't tied to anything ongoing. The Robertson case, still lingering in limbo, hasn't yet reached the system's purview. It is a blind spot, one that now leaves everyone questioning how deep the rot goes and where it will surface next. This isn't just a challenge to their mission, it is a direct threat to their credibility. If more deaths follow, if this pattern repeats, the entire network will be implicated. Whoever is behind this, whether a rogue agent or an unknown adversary, knows exactly where to strike to sow doubt and chaos. The weight of the unknown presses down heavily, threatening the very foundation of what they are trying to build. As the hours pass, the question remains, is this a message, a warning, or the beginning of something far worse? Jamarian Robertson's case resolved. Jamarian Robertson's case resolved. Jamarian Robertson's case resolved. Meanwhile in Allen, Texas, Detective Tony Stargill pulls into the narrow alley behind the old brick loft building that Leo Simmons owns. The night air bites at his face as he steps out of his car, his breath forming faint clouds in the cold. The building stands tall and foreboding, its windows dark except for the faint glow of a single light on the upper floor. Stargill adjusts his coat and heads toward the main entrance, noting the faint scent of grease and charcoal drifting from a nearby vent. The cheeseburgers, he guesses, Simmons' favorite, but the absence of light or activity from the loft strikes him as odd. Climbing the stairs to the second floor, Stargill knocks firmly on the loft door. After a moment, a woman answers, her expression a mix of confusion and concern. Detective Stargill, he introduces himself, flashing his badge. I'm here to check on Leo. Is he home? No. The woman replies, her brow furrowed. He's still in the shop downstairs. He didn't even come up for dinner, and he never skips dinner, especially on a cold night like this. She glances back at a young boy sitting at the kitchen table, his head bowed as he picks at his food. That's not like him. Stargill nods, his instincts kicking in. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Descending the creaky staircase, Stargill pushes open the door to the shop on the ground floor. The air is thick with the mingled smells of wood varnish, paint, and something faintly metallic. The faint hum of an overhead heater fills the space, but the lights are off, casting everything in murky shadow. Stargill calls out, his voice echoing through the cavernous room. There's no response, but he hears a faint shuffling noise from somewhere deeper inside. His hand instinctively moves to the flashlight clipped to his belt. Clicking it on, the beam illuminates rows of wooden shelves filled with tools, brushes, and scattered projects in various stages of completion. Leo, it's Detective Stargill, he calls again, his voice firm. I need you to come out. The shuffling grows louder, followed by an odd scraping sound that sends a shiver down his spine. He moves cautiously through the shop, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. The room feels suffocating, each corner and shadow heavy with an unspoken tension. Finally, Stargill reaches the light switch. He hesitates for a moment, then flips it on. The fluorescent lights buzz to life, illuminating the room in stark, sterile brightness. That's when he sees him. Leo Simmons is completely naked, his pale, sweat-slicked body gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. He's running, no, charging across the shop floor, his feet pounding against the concrete with a singular, horrifying purpose. Stargill freezes, his mind struggling to process the scene unfolding before him. Simmons's eyes are wide and unseeing, his mouth stretched in a grotesque grimace. He doesn't falter, doesn't hesitate. His target is clear. A 13-point deer mount hanging on the far wall, its antlers sprawling like jagged spears. Leo, stop! Stargill shouts, but his voice barely registers over the pounding of Simmons's feet. Without slowing, Simmons crashes into the deer mount. The deer mount is a 13-point buck, an impressive and intimidating display of nature's raw power. The antlers are massive, their rough texture a testament to the buck's maturity and dominance in the wild. Each point is sharp, honed over time by natural wear and the buck's territorial battles. The larger tines curve upward like jagged spears, their tips glinting faintly under the shop lights, while the smaller ones jut outward at odd angles, creating a chaotic yet symmetrical crown. The mount itself shows the craftsmanship of a seasoned taxidermist. The antlers are polished, but retain the natural striations and grooves that speak to the buck's age, likely 6 or 7 years old, an elder among his kind. The skull is sturdy, the bone bleached and preserved to highlight the antler's grandeur, while the base is secured to a dark wooden plaque, its edges beveled and glossy. It's a trophy not of vanity, but of respect, a tribute to the buck's life and the wildness it once roamed. But now, the once proud display is a grotesque centerpiece, its sharp antlers stained with fresh blood, their lethal potential horrifyingly realized. The antlers pierce through his skull with a sickening crunch, one prong punching through his temple while another tears into his chest. Blood sprays across the wall, pooling at the base of the mount and dripping in thick rivulets down the polished wood. Simmons's body jerks once, twice, then goes limp, hanging grotesquely from the antlers like a macabre trophy. Stargill stares, his stomach lurching as the metallic scent of fresh blood fills the air. The room falls silent except for the faint drip, drip, drip of blood hitting the floor. Shaking himself from his stupor, Stargill pulls out his phone and dials Detective Walker. His hands are trembling as he waits for the call to connect. "Walker," comes the curt response. "Leo Simmons is dead," Stargill says, his voice tight. "I found him in his shop. He impaled himself on a deer mount, ran straight into it like he didn't even see it." There's a long pause on the other end. "No pepper spray?" Walker finally asks. "No," Stargill replies, his eyes still fixed on Simmons's lifeless body. This was different. He didn't fight, didn't scream. He just ran, like something was chasing him. Walker exhales sharply. 6 men dead, all so different. This is spiraling, Tony. Fast. "Tell me something I don't know," Stargill mutters, ending the call as EMTs and first responders arrive at the scene. He steps outside to give them space, but the image of Simmons's body remains seared into his mind. Nothing about tonight makes sense, and the pieces of the puzzle are only getting darker and more twisted. Detective Walker's voice crackles over the phone, steady but carrying the weight of the night's horrors. "Tony, I need you to wrap up at Simmons's place. EMTs will handle the scene. I'm heading to meet Wilson now at the last location on the list. Their guy is still alive and conscious." Stargill exhales sharply, the news landing like a fragile beacon of hope in the chaos. "Conscious? That's the first good news I've heard all night. Be careful, Neil. This whole thing, it's not adding up." "I know," Walker replies grimly. "If anyone has answers, it'll be this guy. I'll keep you updated." With that, the call ends, leaving Stargill staring at the gruesome scene in the shop, the words "still alive" ringing faintly in his ears. For the first time tonight, there's a glimmer of something to hold on to. But the weight of what they've already lost looms heavily over them all.